How does the past help us move forward? I am your host, Matias-Stefano. In this episode, I am going to explain the purpose of understanding how ancient past will help us evolve as humans today. 500,000 years ago, the world started to split into 4 species that came from the sky. Once these 4 civilizations from the sky split the world in many parts, and they took the information of humanity and they put their own blood within them, they start to create their races, so each race of humanity could have the information of one of those species. This was done so, as the Confederation said, we had to be all together in just one. So unity for them was to put all the blood of all of them inside of us. And these 4 first civilizations were the test to see if we, humanity, were able to understand, to accept, and to keep being alive through the manipulation of our DNA through 1 million years. When the planet started to change again, humanity went through all the planet and filled up every region of the whole planet. A lot of population started to grow in every region of the planet, many and thousands of humans around the planet. Not like we are now, but a huge amount of people were living in every part of the planet, ruled by these 4 civilizations, until the planet hit. When the planet got a lot of hot and suddenly the ice age ended, so Nemnir, the giant ones, they disappeared, they died, and they went away from this planet. So the snake ones were the ones to rule during that time. Once the snake ones start to go all over the planet, another ice age came, so they all died. The planet was so cold that all reptilians weren't able to be here to live in this planet, so they went away. Humans were the only ones that were able to survive to that, so they decided to prepare humanity to keep going with their rules. So that's why they create 2 civilizations where Alithir and Aesir could survive through human bodies. To do so, they created the civilization of Mu by the Alithir, and by the Aesir, they created the civilization of Atlantis. Both were ruled by the laws of Alithir and Aesir, and they separated the world in 2, the ones living in the Pacific Ocean and the ones living in the Atlantic Ocean. That's how they were split in 2 to control the inner world and the outer world. As the Alithir, the Mu people, were trying to look for the connection of the inner world, the Atlantean ones were the ones to rule the outer world. And that's the main idea why both civilizations, for us, were in a kind of a war. Mu was this civilization that filled up all west of America and east of Asia and Australia. All the Pacific Ocean was built by them and was taught by them to all the women and men that were shaman and at these regions how to find the truth within. And that's why Native Americans, people from Pacific Ocean and people from East China, from Japan, from South Asia and Australia were the Aboriginal people that were looking for the connection within. But in the other hand, we had the civilization, Atlantis, where I was part of, that we were taught by the same people from the Confederation how to do the look inside by building civilizations outside. So that's why instead of looking the sphere of life within in our hearts, we were looking for building those spheres through temples, through pyramids. But that had a purpose. Mu people were people connected to the planet Earth, to the crystals, to the plants, to the animals, and they kept evolution through respecting the planet and going to the main spots of the planet by meditating, by levitating. They were communicating each other by telepathy, and they were not much humans as the Atlantean people were. Atlantean people were the most humans because Arthurian people prepared them to have the blue blood, to have the strength to be rulers of the consciousness of the planet. And that's why they were taught how to open the portals of the planet and how to be connected to the confederation. The way they have to do this, it was by building all these spheres of life in the portals of the structure of the network in 8th dimension, but here in the 3rd dimension. That's why Atlantis has this goal of fill the whole planet with civilizations and colonies where they build these temples and these pyramids aligned with the network of consciousness of 8th dimension. We used to remember this story with the name of the people from Lemuria. Lemuria is not the name, as neither was Mu, neither was Atlantis. These are names that people from history used to give to understand the purpose or to understand the region where they were supposed to live. So Lemurian people were not called like Lemur. Lemur are monkeys from the regions of the Indian Ocean. Those kind of monkeys are in Sumatra and also in Madagascar. So a French guy, he was trying to explain how these monkeys were connected from these two faraway islands. So he said it should be a continent before that connected those two islands, and he called that Lemuria. So he could explain why these two islands had the same monkey. That's how Lemuria comes out. It has just 200 years old, the name. And Mu is one of the real names that it have in the Pacific Ocean. So the ones that lived in the Indian Ocean, they were just trying to protect themselves from Atlantis, which was another name which Greek people give to the civilizations that was behind the mountains that they call the god Atlas. Atlas was the protector of the world. So the mountains from there, they were called the Atlas Mountains. The sea was called the Atlantic. And all the islands behind that were called the Atlantidas in Greek. So that's why we still today call Atlantis that land, but the names also are different. How I remember it, the Mu was called Yomi-Om, and Atlantis we used to call Hephaestion. Atlantis civilization was created in between the islands that we now call Green Cape, Azores, and Canary Islands. By going out from these small islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, they were trying to conquer all the regions that were in the opposite part of the world. And that's why a few of the Mu people start a war against Atlantean people to protect the ocean. Most of the Mu people knew that their civilization has to end, so they just went away. But a few of them stayed in the Indian Ocean trying to protect the Pacific Ocean from the Atlantean people coming through the mountains from the snake. During the Verge era, while Atlantis was the biggest civilization you could ever think about, this world order that we have was held by the Ice Age that we were having. This Ice Age allows us to be connected to every book in history of humanity and the whole world. So we were a civilization that was connected to cold, that was connected to the ice. And all the network of pyramids that we have created around the world was connected to the information of the North Pole and the South Pole. Through our process of civilization, we realized that we were so split in the world that a few civilizations and colonies of Atlantis started to think different from Atlantis. So they started to ask themselves, why don't we do another thing? Why don't we do a different thing? Atlantean civilization started to be worried about what would happen with the consciousness of the planet and our civilizations if the colony starts to split and they start to do different things. So the first conflict that they had was economical, for sure. Economics start to run bad for Atlantis because the colonists stop giving them stuff and they start to charging them for the stuff. So a lot of people from the mainland, they start to leave to the colonies to have the main sources to do their jobs and all that. So when they start to went away, there was the second problem, that was education. As many people were leaving Atlantis, the temples were getting empty. So a lot of people from Atlantis stopped learning how to be connected to the self and started to learn how to go out the island, and they left the temples of knowledge. So this brought new generations of politics that doesn't have this kind of knowledge and this kind of education. So the problem was politics after that, when they tried to rule and say, we are not going to the core, we are going to take the colonies back. So Atlantis has this shift in their politics that was not connecting everyone as one, but to rule them all and be together. By this control that they tried to held around the planet, they forgot how to be connected to the planet. So the planet started to protect itself from the consciousness of civilization. So that made that every node as a flower start to close and go down to the inner world. So the inner world started to hold the energy of the planet, and the outer world was not able to get that information anymore. And that made that all the books melted. It created a new heat era that the planet, the ice age, ended. And then all this water that was held into the libraries start to go out from the Northern Sea, from the Baltic Sea, from the Bering Sea. All this water start to come down to the oceans, and that's what you mostly remember. And that brought a war in between colonies to see which one would be the next one to rule the world. So that's why Atlantis blew up the pyramids of some other places, so they couldn't have the control. So by good politics, Egypt was one of the only colonies that allows Atlantean people to come and not fight them. So that's why they recreated this civilization like Atlantis in the River Nile. There and Mexico were just one of the two of them that allow Atlantean people to keep going. So many of the others were destroyed, or their pyramids were destroyed. And that's why we don't have now the big monuments that we used to have at that time. And we had these new temples rebuilt by the pieces of those ancient pyramids. That's why 15,000 years ago we left the seas to become river civilizations. And that's why the next civilization was Chem, the one that was in the river Nile, and also the ones that were in the rivers in China, in the rivers of Mesopotamia, in the rivers of Pakistan and India, the rivers of America, Amazonia, and the Andes Mountains. This area, it was a Mu area in which we as beings recognize the power of the self from within, from the native. And after that, Atlantean people came and added its information to the Andes Mountains through the Amazon River. So both civilizations coexisted in this area. Both civilizations found a point of integration, and that's why that region there is one of the most important in the planet to talk about the new consciousness and the awareness of the new time, because it's not split in two. Both civilizations that fought each other in many other places of the world were connected as one there in Titicaca. That's why the buildings that you can find there are buildings built in Mu time, like 24,000 years ago or more, but they were rebuilt by Atlanteans 15,000 years ago, and they were rebuilt by Quichua people like 5,000 years ago and 2,000 years ago. So that's why that area is so important for the consciousness in the future, because when we talk about unity, unity will come from there. By the end of these civilizations, the humanity tried to understand how they could put together the inner path with the outer path. But the age of Virgin ended, so the order disappeared, and the ego era, the Leo era, started. It was not something that they could rule through the mind. It was something that the planet needed to keep going. The planet is a living being that needs to change every 2,000 or 3,000 years. So we could have this transformation from out and within and out. So every 2,500 years approximately, the changes of the planet starts to be felt, and that's how civilizations like those start to end. These two civilizations are the key of why we are now here talking about them. The ending of the Atlantean civilizations and the war with Mu took us to the end of the era in 12,000 years ago. And 12,000 years ago is a specific moment of time where we can see each other in a mirror. If you have a sphere and you cut it, and you will see this circle of 4 stages of the universe. As we have spoken in the 4th dimension, we had this process of expression, experimentation, integration, and transcendence. By these 4 stages, we have a whole timeline which is known as the 24,000 years of an era. We had these 12 constellations by day and 12 constellations by night. We call the Great Year. The Great Year is the concept of 12 constellations being enlightened and 12 constellations being in the shadow. So we have this 24,000 years circle, and if we cut it, we have 12,000 years. If we are here now, and the last ice age was 12,000 years ending in the past, so that means that the end of this era of Leo is the beginning of our era in Aquarius. So that means that we are exactly at the same moment where Atlantis has ended. So that's why our civilization is also in an end. We are finishing a process, and they were also finishing a process. So we are exactly in the opposite of time and space, and that's why in time we need to learn as a mirror what they did so we do better. That's the real reason why we are all talking about Atlantis civilizations right now. Not because it was interesting to know what happened in the past. It's because we have to be prepared about what is going to happen to us in the future. We have a lot of things to learn about Atlantis because they were the builders of the network. They were the ones that connect us to the 8th and the 4th dimension. So they were the ones that opened this system to download information, but they did it in a different way. They did it trying to control, to create an world order. Just one group of beings controlling everyone. So, but they didn't do that in a bad way. They just knew that the world was going to split in many other parts, many colonies. So they were worried about what happened if they don't know how to be connected. So that's why they created this world order to order this world. Exactly. So they mess it up because the timelines and the space needs to change. It cannot be always the same. It needs change constantly. And that's why Atlantis, as Mu did, they had to end at some point. So the new ones can build a different way of doing it. So it's important now that we understand the history of Atlantis, because we are now exactly at the same spot. The ancient civilizations and the ancient rules from 2,000 years ago, they are trying to control everyone because they are afraid that if we are not controlled, we could mess up the world. So the new era that is coming is a free era where you will be connected to your own truth. So if we had been taught that the truth was just one, and we call religion or science, we are not going to be able to see the real truth within, which is both of them together. So this is why it's important to understand why they did, because now there are a few people also trying to do a new world order to hold us all in a control by fear. But it's not because fear is a tool on us. It's because they have fear to lose power. And we have not we should not fight them. We should teach them what happened at the last time they did it. We should remember them that it will be an end anyway. It's not something that humanity can control. It's something that Earth controls. So we have to work together to create new orders, but without this fear of changing. So this is the main idea that I guess we have to rebuild from Atlantis. We have to restore this knowledge of the network around the planet of the 4th and 8th dimension to have this information. But the only way you can do it is if you don't fear change, is if you don't fear the people that fear change. That if you are able to change by yourself and to acknowledge that you have to heal your own history in order to create a new one. And that's why we need to learn what happened 12,000 years ago. Not to see who built the pyramids, is to see that we are going to build them again, and we have to do it properly. Thank you for joining me on this series. I am your host, Matias Estefano. Through my memories from the Akashic Records, I hope I was able to help you understand why things exist, why we have problems, why we are born into this world time and time again, and why you are here today to fulfill an even bigger purpose.